dear family. Just a few short days ago, over 1,000 people gathered in this space for the high holidays. It was the first time in 4 years we had come together to celebrate as a community. And today is the first time in over 4 years that we have gathered for a commemoration. Howie would be very proud to see all of you here, all of you gathered. They say that the soul lingers on this earth for the first year after a person passes away, and I'm sure that his presence is here among us today. Please know that there are people also watching on our live stream. They are with us as well, and I will give a few short notes later on in the service about how things will be unfolding today. I begin with Psalm 23, Mizmor LeDavid. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsad, binodeh sheyarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenahaleni. נפשי ישבה וינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו, גם כי אלך בהגיע צל מוות לא יירא רע כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני, תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי, דשנת בשמן ראשי כוס רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. A Song of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. We're gathered here today to pay our respects and celebrate the life of the extraordinary Howard Blatt. Just call me Howie, was what he would say when you met him. Chaim ben Shraga Feivel, Phil, his father, and Chenya, Anne, was the kind of guy who'd scratch the surface to get to know you and connect to you. He was a person who really cared about his friends and family and would go the extra mile to support you and make sure you got whatever you needed to succeed. Mishpacha, family, was a core value for him, and if you were fortunate enough to be part of the greater Mishpacha, you were lucky indeed. Howie was an exceptional combination of both of his parents, Anne and Phil. His father, Phil, or Feivel in Yiddish, was an introvert, a strong and athletic guy who didn't really show a lot of emotion, except as brother Arnie told me on the day he graduated when he saw his father cry. He was born in Kenora on the Lake of the Woods. That connection ran deep for Howie, who was drawn to the rough terrain of the Canadian Shield and Lake Country, with its abundant fishing and opportunities for boating and exploring wild places. This connection to his father Phil's world would become an integral part of who Howie was as a person. His Uncle Donald and his father loved to fish, and they would take Howie and his brother Arnie out fishing. Howie felt drawn to Kenora, where he had these positive experiences as a child, and where his grandparents ran a small store that they lived above. Kathy told me how he would make a habit of driving by that building every time he left Kenora, pointing it out to his boys and later to his grandchildren. He was in love with this place where he could connect to nature and his family's history. Howie's deep connection to the Lake of the Woods in Kenora has certainly been passed down to his granddaughters, Maya and Hannah, who spent their summers there and worked at a variety of lake life-related establishments for their summer jobs. Maya probably could have become a fishing guide herself with Howie's meticulous fish filleting training. Howie's mom, Anne, grew up in Winnipeg. Anne was the extrovert. She was the one deeply connected to family, traditional cooking, and simply tradition. Anne's side of the family spent summers at Winnipeg Beach. Howie was a wonderful combination of his two parents. He was the extrovert, with the love of family and a desire to preserve and honor family traditions, including special beloved foods and holidays and life cycle events. He was comfortable making conversation with anybody, making friends wherever he went. He didn't make small talk, though. He really wanted to get to know you, find out who you were and what you were interested in. And he remembered your conversation and what you told him. You see, he was very meticulous and methodological. He kept track of things, and he remembered details about people and places which would serve him well in his career in the insurance industry, serving people. Howie was always ambitious and driven, and he knew what he wanted in life, and despite the setbacks and challenges that he faced, he was positive, always pushing forward to realize his dreams. His entrepreneurial spirit was evident at a young age when he and his brother Arnie took their little wagon to the train station at Winnipeg Beach to transport people's luggage back and forth to their cottages for them. Later, Howie put himself through school to gain his Bachelor of Arts degree and took on any number of jobs, from fishing guide in northern Manitoba to Air Force cadet to weekend cab driver. Maybe these are things you didn't know about Howie. He did whatever it took to get himself through university. When Howie set his mind to something, nothing could stop him from making that happen. As a kid, he wanted a boat so badly that he took all his bar mitzvah money to buy himself one. I think the story that struck me the most was Howie's resolve when he lost his beloved first wife, Faye. The family spoke about his incredible determination to be a good father to his son, my brother-in-law, David. Family told me how during the summer months when Howie was working and David was out of school, David would spend the weekdays at Winnipeg Beach with Baba Ann and Zeta Phil, who had a cottage there. Every Friday, Howie would drive out from Winnipeg to pick David up and take him all the way out to Kenora for the weekend. For the first little while, they would sleep in a tent at Pye's Landing. Later, the tent became a trailer and then a rental cabin at Northern Harbor. Howie was finally able to save up enough money to buy himself a sailboat that they could sleep in and take out on Lake of the Woods. The sailboat later became a cabin, but because he didn't have enough money, he shared it with another family. The cabin was on an island that had no name. And when Howie finally bought out the cabin, it was in the late 70s, and TV series like Love Boat and Fantasy Island were all the rage. So Howie decided that his island needed a name. After all, David was his little tattoo. And Howie left no stone unturned so that he could have the island officially recognized by the government as Fantasy Island, which today can be found on any map, including Google Maps, of Lake of the Woods. Howie knew what hard work was. And when he wished you well at a wedding, a Jewish New Year, or any occasion, he would wish you good health, happiness, and cash flow. Yes, he lived by this motto. He always put on a happy face, looking after his own health and that of the people he loved. He even had that phrase inscribed on his business cards. He knew the value and importance of being able to realize your dreams and that hard work and perseverance could make it happen, but probably a little prosperity couldn't hurt. Howie was a dreamer, but he also had strategies to make his dreams come true. And aside from his love for family, Howie was passionate about food. He cared about understanding the ingredients and how things were made. And I am told he aspired to be a chef. And he didn't just speculate. He did his research and thought things through and actually opened a Mexican restaurant because that's what he thought would be the best option, Al Capoco's. If any of you had ever eaten at Al Capoco's, it was a spicy little restaurant opened by an ambitious Jewish guy from the North End. Howie eventually got into the life insurance business, working for Great West Life, and in 1999, he was elected #1 agent for Western Canada. He was good at selling, and he was good with people. After losing Faye, a shattered Howie needed to put himself back together again, and an incredible woman, Kathy Dearden, came into his life and became his source of stabilization. Kathy was David's kindergarten teacher. They had wonderful conversations at parent-teacher interviews, but she refused to go out with Howie. Fast forward a few years later, Kathy returned from living in Florida, where she got her master's degree. They bumped into each other at a Jets game, and Kathy remembers hysterically how Howie, who was rushing in to watch the game, said to her, "I know you were David's teacher. I don't remember your name." Anyways, they ended up going out on a first date, and then she came to the lake to help him put the sailboat away, and I am told that the rest is history. So along came Josh, amazing son #2, and Howie's new lease on life. I personally had the privilege of meeting this wonderful family when my husband Danielle and I came with my then 2-year-old daughter Alana from France, where we were living at the time, for Shaarey and Dave's wedding. Ever since that first meeting, we connected to Kathy and to Captain Howie, who shared my husband's love of boating, fishing, and the great outdoors. They became mishpacha, as we did, fishing buddies, and a deep friendship was forged. The guys spent many hours boating and fishing together on Lake of the Woods and hours talking on the phone. Howie introduced Danielle to walleye fishing at French Narrows, his favorite spot, which I'm sure he showed to some of you. And he was always there for Danielle and for all of us, as he was always there for you, his friends and family, many of whom have come out today to show their love and support for him. Howie's positivity, kindness, and warmth made everyone's lives a little softer, a little gentler. He was loud and boisterous, but he had a soft center. His dear wife, Kathy, tells me that he taught her and her very British family how to talk about feelings, to say, "I love you." Howie, we all loved you, and we will miss you dearly. Your smile and your humor will remain in our hearts, and your presence will continue to fill and be present at our holiday tables and our family celebrations. I now invite my brother-in-law, David, and Josh to come up, and they are going to make their presentation to you. Just before I do that, I just want to give you a few bits of information following the funeral, and I will remind you again at the end. We will proceed to the Rosh Pina Cemetery at 2795 Main Street. Following the burial, we will come back here for the meal of consolation. Everyone is invited to join. Howie would want you to have party sandwiches. That was very important to him. The Shiva, the 7-day period of mourning where friends and family pay their respects, will take place at the home of Shaarey and David Blatt, 1261 Wellington Crescent. And tonight, the Shiva is from 7 to 9 with prayers at 7:30. Wednesday, the prayers will be a little bit early because of the holiday of Sukkot, so prayers at 6 p.m. The rabbi will take the family out of Shiva, and then you can come and visit between 7 and 9. David.
We are all so very, very shocked at how quick this has happened. Because as you know, when it comes to Howie, nothing is quick. My name is David Blatt, and I am Howie's son. My dad often said, coulda, shoulda, woulda. He would say this to reinforce the importance of thinking ahead, proper planning, and just being prepared. He would also enforce the idea of looking back and reflecting and learning from experience. In reality, there are some things that no matter what, you can't plan for. For most of my life, I've replayed this day in my head over and over and over. There are so many thoughts and questions. How could we manage without Howie? How should we remember Howie? How would we properly honor Howie? How could I make my dad proud? What if we run out of party sandwiches? The texts and calls about Howie keep coming in. Howie was a force of nature. Howie was amazing. Howie's larger-than-life personality was legendary. Howie was a super awesome guy. Howie was a real gentleman. Howie was a great guy. Howie was one of the good ones. Howie was the favorite of all my parents' friends. Howie was uniquely special. Howie was all about friendship and connections. No agenda, no ulterior motive, just genuine friendship. He had strong friendships with absolutely everyone. Howie had better relationships with my friends than I did. Howie connected with every person he met, and to Howie, he instantly accepted you as a friend. Whether it was Sumi, the deli counter manager at Whole Foods, whether it was John, the dining room manager at Trulux, or whether it was Melanie, the online customer service rep at the Marriott Hotels, Howie made a connection. After that initial conversation with Howie, not only did they have Howie as a friend, but they also knew that Lake of the Woods had 65,000 miles of shoreline and 14,000 islands. Howie loved the lake. I've known Howie my whole life. Let me tell you how we first met. February 25th, 1969, Howie turned 25. Remember what it was like to be 25? He had been married to Faye for just over a year. He was working at Great West Life, selling life insurance, and life for the young couple was just starting out, full of opportunity. 1 month later, March 25th, 1969, I was born. 20 days after that, April 15th, 1969, my mom, Faye, turns 24. Only 10 days later, April 25th, 1969, exactly 1 month after I was born, his wife, my mom, suddenly dies from a deadly infection. Now, it takes the personality, the will, and the positive spirit of someone like Howie to not only persevere through this horrible life experience, but to carry on and to make both my childhood and his life the best that it could be. For the next 10 years, Howie and I played many roles together. He was my dad, he was my mom, he was my brother, he was my mentor, and he was my best friend. Long before anyone talked about emotional support animals, I was his emotional support kid. We went everywhere together. I became his +1 for all his social events. I was his travel buddy to his Great West Life conferences and conventions that he would routinely qualify for as a top performer in Canada. We went to every Jets game together. Our seats were at ice level on the blue line. Howie would become friends, of course, with everyone around us, including the referees and linesmen. At one of the games, Hall of Famer Bobby Hull got in a fight right in front of our seats, and Bobby Hull's toupee came off and fell to the ice. The linesman picked up the toupee and threw it to my dad. "Here, Howie, you could use this." Howie taught me about nutrition, a moment on the lips, forever on the hips. As a little kid, Howie would prepare my school lunches, and when most of my friends were bringing peanut butter and jam sandwiches, he sent me to school with smoked oysters. It was then that Kathy, my kindergarten teacher, took notice, and as you know, the rest was history. My dad always made me feel special, always made you feel loved, reinforced that life was full of opportunity. He made you believe that anything was possible and that you could achieve it. As a little kid, my friends thought I was so lucky that I had a Howie. They all knew Howie, they all wanted a Howie. Howie drove cool cars, Howie lived in cool places, like when we lived in the Holiday Inn. My birthday parties were legendary. Howie let us do cool things. Howie always said yes. As I got older, started working and trying to get into business, Howie and I were the perfect business partners. He was revenue and I was expense. Howie was instrumental in creating opportunities and introducing me to the business community. Before there was LinkedIn, there was Howie. Howie knew everyone. Kevin Bacon talked about the world being connected by 7 degrees of separation. In Howie's world, it was literally 1. No matter where I went, I would introduce myself as David Blatt, and people would instantly say, "Are you Howie's son?" Everyone has their 30 seconds of fame, and mine was being Howie's son. Now, Howie did have his shtick. He had plenty of shtick. Howie had so much to say, he often talked about writing a book. The book would highlight Howie's many life lessons, his observations, his perspective on people, politics, and society. Howie had a great perspective on gossip. He would say, I don't know what's going on in my own bedroom. How am I supposed to know what's going on in theirs? I am convinced Howie must have been the real-life inspiration for Larry David's character in Curb Your Enthusiasm. A couple of years ago, a close friend gave me a book, Questions for Your Dad. The book was intended to create meaningful discussions with your dad. I gave the book to my dad on Father's Day, and we scheduled monthly lunches to meet and review the questions in the book. My dad was quite excited about the lunches. It captured his 2 loves, food and friendship, or as he would say, Essen and Fressen. You would expect that after 2 years, 24 2-hour lunches, 48 hours of togetherness, we would have made our way through that entire book. We actually never got to one question. You see, Howie knew what he wanted you to hear, and he also knew what he did not want you to hear. A conversation with Howie is similar to calling Aeroplan. You call for a specific purpose, something to talk about, but before speaking, you are put on a 20-minute hold. You must listen to some interesting but irrelevant information. It would go on and on and on. And just when you thought it was finally time for you to talk, the message would repeat itself. Starting a conversation with my dad is like trying to make your way across a busy intersection. You have to carefully pick your moment and then step on the gas and hope to get through. Otherwise, you could be there all day. After 55 years, I still have so much I want to say to my dad. The day Howie passed, Rafael Nadal announced his retirement by saying, "Everything has a beginning and an end." And so too must this speech. Today is tough, tomorrow seems tougher. Who can give us advice? Who can inspire us? How do we move forward? How does life go on? How can things get better? Who can show us the way? Well, the answer is Howie. Because think back to April 25th, 1969. That day must have been very similar to today, a sudden tragedy of unmeasurable magnitude. We now know how Howie must have felt, but more importantly, we know what Howie did. He moved forward, he carried on, he persevered, he was a fighter, he was a dreamer, he flourished, he thrived, he made a new life, he made a better life. And as a result of his actions, I'm proud to introduce you to my younger brother, Josh. He too is Howie's son.
Welcome. This is one of the toughest days of my life, and on top of that, I have to follow Rena and my brother. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, punched in the mouth. Mike Tyson. First, I want to thank you for being here today. Whether you have laughed or cried with our family, we are truly grateful for our friendship, our love, and our support. Shout out to the wonderful friends joining us on live stream from Naples, Florida, Kenora, Ontario. These were Dad's happy places. He loved both and was a huge advocate for both. There was no place Howie would rather be than with his bike club at Windstar or fishing in Kenora. The outpouring of stories, messages, notes, texts, emails, and voicemails have been truly humbling. Today is a very tough day. Trying to sum up the legendary life of Howard, Howie, Dad, in a few short stories is unimaginable. Howie was my dad and my best friend. He was an extraordinary man who always acted like an ordinary one. Family was everything, and Howie was one of a kind. Dad loved people, and people always loved him back. For those that don't know, the synagogue was renovated a few short years ago, as Rena had mentioned, and Howie was excited to attend the grand reopening on the Jewish New Year, Thursday, October 3rd. Unfortunately, that day, Howie was too weak and couldn't attend. It really sucks that this is how Dad and I are experiencing the renos together. Dad always told us to play the hand that you have and not the hand you wish you had, and this day is no different. Dad, it's brighter in here. There's a few new windows, and you'd be very proud. Howie was our first-line center, our quarterback, our fishing guide, our captain, and we loved him dearly. He was a loving husband, fun dad, caring brother. He was a hip Zedek to Hannah and Maya. He would travel around the world to Hannah's pickleball tournaments, downloading podcasts, and getting Instagram before me. Maya was Howie's favorite hospital visitor. Hospital visits, which seemed like 24 hours a day, would be met with Dave and I walking into the room and Howie sleeping. Maya walks in the room, Howie jumps up like he's taking a beep test. He was so proud of the woman that you two have become. Howie was bald, and everybody knew that, couldn't hide that. We traveled to exotic places on beautiful trips and Great West Life conventions. The girls in his life, whether his wife, whether Shaarey, whether the granddaughters, whether his coworkers, or whether his friends, would sometimes get beads in their hair. Howie always wanted to be included. Howie would attend this ritual with them, saying, I would like 3 beads in the back of my hair, 2 beads in my chest hair, and 1 mystery bead. Howie had a heart of gold, always prioritizing relationships and making time for everybody and anybody. He had an uncanny ability to make simple routines memorable, and he always rose to the occasion. Howie's door was always open. He was great with people, and he thrived off being around people. To put it simply, Howie was not an introvert. Whether it was a weekly stop at the hospital to bring friends and family popsicles, who doesn't like popsicles, or co-signing a mortgage for a family friend in need, Howie was always there. Howie always had your back. In his younger years, he had a variety of odd jobs. He was a fishing guide, he worked at a butcher shop, he worked at Eaton's, just to name a few. One day at Winnipeg Beach, Howie would find himself behind the counter of a butcher shop approximately 15 minutes before close. Howie was excited about a party after work and wanted to ensure the store was put away, and he got out of there as fast as he could. Mrs. Abrams walks in. Howie's totally rattled. Can I help you, Howie asks. Yes. Actually, you can, she says. I'm looking for a chicken for my family dinner. Howie is stunned, looks down in the cooler to find only 1 chicken in the water and ice. Howie raises the chicken above the counter and asks Mrs. Abrams, what size? 10 pounds, she replies. Howie, holding the 6-pound chicken, splashes the chicken back in the ice water, filling it with ice and water, and holds it above the counter. Great, I found a 10-pound chicken. Howie confirms with Mrs. Abrams that this is the route she'd like to go, buying the 10 pounds chicken. Mrs. Abrams replies, "Thanks, Howie, I'll take both chickens." Dad had many principle-based philosophies, sayings as we call them, based on real-world experiences. Health, happiness, and cash flow. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I'm the CEO of my own grunt corp. Process, process, process. The faintest ink is better than the best memory. Dreams are for those who dream the dreams and are willing to make the sacrifices and pay the price to see their dreams come true. Why buy a car when I can just pay myself $1,500 a month? Never go to bed angry. Traditions. Your health is your wealth. You are your number one client. Schedule time in your calendar for yourself. Haircuts for Howie were a good time. Howie was totally bald and would go for haircuts that lasted 4 minutes. Howie would sit in the chair for 40 minutes. I don't want to be their highest margin customer. Howie had so many number one hits. Our family was extremely close, and Howie was the leader. Family trips around the world, dinner from 6 to 7 with no cell phones, open and honest communication. You can tell Howie anything. He had been there, he had done that, and he was not fazed. Howie was the best listener, a rare trait for somebody who talked so much, and the gravity of the moment, Howie always rose to it. Big meetings in his business world, death, accidents, public speaking, Howie always had an uncanny ability to meet the moment and transition from a relaxed lake beachgoer to a serious professional in a matter of seconds. He had a wonderful calm about him. He always knew the right things to say and was extremely logical. I think Howie was so calm because he had the gift of the gab. You can't teach that, and he thrived on countless people underestimating him. Dad was my first call when I was scared. First car accident, first breakup, first time I got cut from a sports team, Dad was always there. He always told us he had a PhD of the streets. He lived the real world. He had done it before and was always a source of calming reason. Dad was ahead of his time, moving from Winnipeg Beach to Kenora, which would be his happy place for over 46 years. Got up early, played squash before work, rode a road bike at 80. He was so rational and strategic at the same time. He caught fish ad nauseum and was in the top of his professional game for over 30 years. I was about 11 years old. Howie took us for an epic family trip to Montreal with my mom to see the Montreal Canadiens and Patrick Roy play Dominic Hasek at the old Montreal Forum. We landed in Toronto on that Friday night to a massive blizzard, and the airport was closed. Getting to Montreal was everything on that particular weekend, and Howie needed to come up with a plan. He always held people accountable and stood in for what he believed in. Howie wanted justice and took the airlines on at that heated moment. This resulted in a $150 travel voucher for each of us. There was nothing open in the middle of the night at Toronto Pearson International Airport, so this led to a $150 travel voucher. The only vendor open that night, I remember like it was yesterday, was A&W. Howie knew we needed to get to Montreal and went through the path of renting a car at wee hours of the morning. We white-knuckled the drive, going about 60 kilometers an hour from Toronto to Montreal, arriving just in time for the pregame skate. We checked in at Howie's good friend's house, and I can hear Howie say this. He said, "I would bring you wine, flowers, or chocolates, but I didn't know what you wanted. Here's 80 cheeseburgers." His friend just laughed and gave him a big hug. I still remember the smile on Brian's face. Howie was 1 in a million. I was in grade 9. It was life week at school. The hot trip that year was a morning bus trip to Giants Ridge, Minnesota for 3 days of skiing and snowboarding. I had a hockey game on the Thursday night and just assumed I would miss the trip. Howie would do anything for his family. I played the game on Thursday night. Friday morning, Howie walks in my room and says, "Get dressed, we're going to Giants Ridge." He stopped at the lodge for a quick coffee break and went to the bathroom for 15 minutes. He just drove 6.5 hours, had a 15-minute break, and was prepared to turn around and drive home. The teacher walked up and said, "Mr. Blatt, you are 1 in a million. I've never seen a parent do this before." He turned around and drove home. 13 hours like it was nothing. Just a normal day. Howie never batted an eye. Never stopped to make a call, check an email, or worry about anything other than yourself. He never wanted recognition, and that, to me, is the definition of a true mensch. When you were with Howie, you always had his complete attention. He always made you feel like you're the most important thing in the world. Even more impressive was how he was very busy at that point in his career, and he never overlooked his family. Howie loved Great West Life, and Great West Life loved him. I still remember the story of when Great West Life opened their new office on Broadway in Osborne. Howie got a nice new office with one problem. The design had a gap at the top of the office for space, airflow, and an open ceiling. The problem was Howie was stubborn and principled as they come, and he went to the CEO to try to get the door properly shut. Privacy and confidentiality were everything for Howie in the insurance industry, and this was unacceptable. The next week, Howie had MTS install a commercial phone booth within his office, complete with sealed doors, soundproofing, and a stool. Howie would talk to clients in his booth within his office. His friends would come, knock on the door looking for Howie, nowhere to be found. They didn't need a pager, they didn't need a cell phone. All they did was head to the subsidized lunchroom. In retirement, one of Howie's favorite pastimes was planning a good meal. Now, for most of us, we take takeout to show up to a restaurant without a reservation, or, at the very worst, make a reservation last minute. But this was not the path that Howie chose, not for Howie. I would come into the house in Naples around 12 in the morning from a morning activity, golf, tennis, cycling, pickleball, etc. Howie would be at the dining room table with notes, a calendar, a laptop, a calculator, a weather app, and his cell phone. Howie looked intense. "Dad, what are you doing? Are you buying a second place in Florida?" "No, I'm starting the reservation process." One of Howie's favorite restaurants at the Bay House in Naples, where they had optional seating to be on the patio, inland patio, the waterfront patio, the dining room, or the bar lounge. And these were all very reasonable seating options. Howie would check the forecast and make the call. Receptionist Ashley would answer, "Hello, this is the Bay House." "Hi, it's Howie. I'm looking for a reservation for next Friday for 8 people. This is very important for me and my family's in from out of town. I heard it might be 80 degrees and the winds are out of the south." I could just see Ashley putting down her phone at the reception where she was probably playing on Instagram while talking to Howie. Holy cow, this Howie guy's no joke. "Howie, I like to be close to the bathroom in case I have to go, but not too close that it's a distraction. I also prefer to be close to the kitchen so my food is hot, but not far enough that noise is a factor. Any recommendations?" he would ask. She would say, "Oh, maybe table E7 looks pretty good." The next day comes, I walk into the room in Naples, and Howie's sitting there in the same position, and I'm wondering what the hell is going on. Howie is on the phone with Charles at the Bay House, asking him the same mandate and asking him, Charles, what table he would recommend. Day 3 in the process comes, and now we're at an official NCAA Division I site visit, where athletes tour around the country attending various colleges. Howie shows up at the Bay House on day 3 to look at Charles and Ashley's table recommendations. At last, the official confirmation comes. Table E8 has been booked, and your party of 8 is confirmed for next Friday at 7 p.m. Friday arrives, and we are on our way to the Bay House, always arriving 5 to 10 minutes before the reservation. On the way over, Howie is descript, the best key lime pie in Florida, he says. Brian at receptions greets us. "Hello, Howie. Your table is ready, and we are ready to walk you to your table." As we start walking to our table, we stop at E2. Howie has a confirmation for E8. No. I talked to Ashley and Charles. They confirmed E8. "Howie, we are very busy tonight, and this is the only table available." The server comes by and asks if we like any drinks, and we'll be back shortly to take our order. "Hi, I'm John. I'll be your server. Menus on the right, specials are on the left. I should note we just ran out of key lime pie." At this point, we are testing the sound on Howie's Fitbit, Apple Watch, heart rate monitor, all at the same time. But we didn't care. Dining with Howie was the absolute best. To my mom, his loving wife, nurse, soulmate, Kathy, who had slept at the hospital for the last 3 weeks to support Howie and take over 100 pages of notes at every doctor rounds. Howie was lucky to have you. You are so selfless, and I love you. To my big brother, David, things have always come easy for our relationships. We have been best friends since the beginning. I am forever grateful for our teamwork in fighting for Dad, and I love you forever. To Carly, my wife, to be, thank you for taking such good care of Dad. We had some incredible moments together, and I know your time with him was short, but he loves you very much. He laughed with you often, brought a smile to your face, and he loved every minute of it. To my Uncle Arnie, although you're 7.5 hours away, I feel like you're our next-door neighbor. Dad adored you, his big brother. Family was everything, and our two families were joined at the hip. Your guidance, wisdom, knowledge, and sense of family has been so valuable, and we love you. In the last few weeks, it was very tough trying to be optimistic for Dad, but not wanting to miss the very few important moments that we still had. Dad and I were always on the same page, and we knew this time was serious and different. He left me with 3 requests. Take care of your mom, take care of Carly, and always, always put the lake away properly. No regrets, Dad. You gave us the best life. You built a tight family. We did everything together, and I know you prepared me for what comes next. I love you, and I'll miss you forever.
I'm now going to chant the El Malei Rachamim, traditional prayer. El Malei Rachamim, shochen bamromim, hametzei menucha nechona al kanfei hashchina, b'malot kedoshim v'techorim, כזוהר הרקיע המזהירים את נשמת חיים בן חניה ושרגא פייבל שהלך לעולמו בעבור שנדבו צדקה ביד הזכרת נשמתו בגן עדן תהיה מנוחתו לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר נפשיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח על משכבו בשלום ונאמר אמן. O God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant true rest upon the wings of the Shekhinah, the divine presence, in the exalted spheres of the holy and pure, who shine on the resplendence of the firmament, to the soul of Howie Blatt, who is gone to his supernal world, for charity has been donated in remembrance of his soul. May his place of rest be in Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. Therefore, may the all-merciful one shelter him with the cover of his wings forever and bind his soul in the bond of life. The Lord is his heritage. May he rest in his resting place in peace. And let us say, Amen. Following the funeral service at the synagogue, we will proceed to the Rosh Pina Cemetery at 2795 Main Street. The family will first exit the chapel and head to the limousine. And once the family has exited, I will ask that all those here stand on either side of the front steps as they exit with the casket. We will follow in a cortege, but you are required to stop for any red lights and all traffic signals. Following the burial, we will return here for the meal of consolation. Everyone is invited to join. How we would not have it any other way. I remind you that the Shiva, the 7-day period of mourning, where friends and families come to pay their respects, will take place at the home of Dave and Shaarey Blatt, 1261 Wellington. You can also find all this information in the funeral announcement that went out, the revised version that went out earlier today. Tonight, that is from 7 to 9 p.m. with services at 7:30. Tomorrow, the services will be at 6 p.m. and then visiting the family between 7 and 9. Please rise now for the mourner's Kaddish. We will also recite this again at the cemetery. Itgadal ve'itgadash shemei Rabah, be'alema divera cherutei ve'amlich malchutei, bechayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol beit Israel, ba'agala uvizman kari vimeru amen. Yehi shmei Rabah mevorach le'alam ulalmei alamaya. Itbarach ve'ishtabach ve'itfoar ve'itromam ve'itnaseh ve'itadar ve'itale ve'italal shemei dekudsha berichu le'ela mikol birchata ve'shirata tushbechata ve'nechemata damiran be'alama vimeru amen. Yehi Shlomo Rabah min Shemaya v'chaim tovim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael vimeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael vimeru amen. You may be seated. The family may now exit. If you need to go downstairs for any reason, please do so. I know that there are people who are parked a little bit far. We will wait for you at the cemetery. And I remind you of the address. It's the Rosh Pina Cemetery. (2795) Main Street, in case you lose the cortege. Thank you. We'll just give the family a moment. When you come back for the meal of consolation, you can enter through the front of the building. The back entrance is closed, as you know, so please come and stand on either side of the steps now as we prepare. Thank you.